Hey there YouTube, Bad Fat Panda here, and I have another game for you guys. It's a Starcraft 2 match that I just played, I don't know, like 2 minutes ago. I thought I would cast it. I was playing on Justin's account because I am too much of a pussy to tank my ladder rating on my own account when trying new shit, and this was indeed new shit, and I'll go ahead and put it on my perspective right now. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that, because I actually wanted to figure out what he was doing. His build seemed a bit wonky when I was actually playing the game, because it was like, I will not spoil it for you, but it was like, what the fuck, and some sort of unit. But I've been trying recently to focus a bit on mech when playing against Protoss, and obviously since tanks got patched back in the early days of the game, there was this time when everybody just said, you know what, we're not going to go tanks anymore, we're just going to mass up bio armies and go attack the Protoss and try and win. Late game versus Protoss, if you get them to a 200, if you let them acquire a 200 army, it's pretty much GG. There's really not much you can do if the Protoss has any skill. You really need to be a lot better than him in order to win it at that point. So my build from the start, because I was scouting for proxies, as Steps of War is obviously an imbalanced map, it's really very, very small, and it's difficult to sort of defend against cheese or early aggression because of the extremely close rush distance. I decided to go ahead and use the time while I was supply blocked from getting my depot late to get the 11 refinery into the 13 barracks, which is just a little variation that I do sometimes when like hard tech builds. This obviously isn't a hard tech build. Usually I would probably go with 13 refinery, maybe 22nd refinery, and throw the factory out at 18. But here you see I'm just going ahead and making my own chat. Let me put up the production tab for you guys to watch at home. And yes, I do know my computer is complete shit, and I really didn't buy it for gaming. I bought it for peripherals. It renders videos quite quickly while doing multiple things at the same time. And for this guy, I'm just trying to get a firm look at what he has going on in his base. I may actually want to... No, I can edit that afterwards. I'll turn the game sound down if I need to. But this is one thing I look for. So if you put it on my perspective, especially with some sort of 4-gate build, I see that he doesn't have that much chrono left, and obviously isn't saving it up to use on his cyber. He's getting the second gas, which is pretty standard for Protoss nowadays, but I do see the third pound, so I know chances are it's not a 4-gate. And that and the fact that he would have had to have at least another pylon or another gateway down around that time, which is you sort of want to keep your SCV around his base as long as possible to aid in trying to get a handle on what he's doing. So here you see my second refinery going down, around 19 supply, pretty standard. Maybe I started at around 18, commenting that it was the third Van Halen song in a row on my iTunes account as well. iTunes seems to like Van Halen a lot. I have about 50 songs, and it seems to be played quite often. So here you see he's going Robo. I don't know how 1-gate. This is a 1-gate Robo expand. See, it was really weird. It was a really gas-intensive, weird build. All right, so there's the second gateway and third gateway. All right, so he's going 3-gate Robo, pretty standard. And now you see he's chronoing Warp Gate out just a tiny bit, but for the previous match to this, I actually got 5-gated by a Protoss and just got completely raffle stomped doing the same thing. But I kept up appearances. I do want to try using this build a little bit more. It's pretty standard for me. Here you see a little bit lag on my SCV. I should really be getting that out, but I was doing something else at the time. My APM is probably not top notch. Yeah. When there's a battle going on, I usually keep it around like 150, 200, because I don't know, it's pretty micro intensive when you have a Raven, siege tanks, and Marines that you're controlling, especially after you get stim. You always want to keep the Marines, especially with Colossus out dancing around, focus firing any Immortals down. There's a whole ton of stuff to do, and this is going to come into play a little bit. This observer that he has. So I did see it in base, so I had a rough idea of what kind of tech path he was going. But I was really feeling sort of unsafe because I didn't know his expand timing. And you'll see one way I sort of adapt to that while trying to pressure him a tiny bit too. In a little bit, I think you'll see, yeah, my reaction. I did pull an SCV out, saw him moving down with an army, and thought that that may come to a gauge. Probably, if we look at army size, yeah, I wouldn't. Let's take a look at the unit stab. 3 Stalkers, that Immortal. If it were to focus down my tanks, with some micro on my siege tanks, I would have been able to pop that back up, the one that's damaged, and get a repair in there. But I did want to put the bunkers up for safe's sake, because with the proxy pile and somewhere like right here, right behind the ledge, this is a really common spot. It can be really easy for reinforcements, and you'll just get overwhelmed and die. So here you see, I definitely was well aware of the fact that the observer was in my base, so I put the Raven to come out right here and put the Marines just a little bit close to it. You see here, coming back from building the bunkers, but I don't want to give him any heads up. Honestly, if I had 50 to scan, then I would have scanned it right away, because you do not want to give him any sort of leeway as far as what he's allowed to see. He's allowed to see nothing more that he can get, and it's really, it is not wasting a scan by any means if you scan it for that observer. And you see him getting supply like an utter pro here at 43 supply, although that wasn't quite as bad. I think I have one later that is a little bit worse. I was doing Thor timing attack today, and I got supply block right before my second Thor came out. I was like, ah, damn it, I had to put a supply depot down. But as far as ratings go, I think he was 2500-ish diamond. So, but let's see. I want to see his timing. All right. So this, I had figured, because I saw the Stalkers earlier and didn't see his heavy Zealot composition, that he was going to go for Blink Stalkers, but then Blink Stalkers is really sort of gas heavy with Immortals out, so obviously he's using the Zealots to compensate a little bit, have a couple sentries in here to block off the ramp. Here's the second observer. I didn't see this come into my base, but I kept with the Raven with my army at all times, just to be sure about stuff. So his expand timing is probably going to get him. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually up in workers, which is, he is definitely not on top of his econ, because the Chrono Boost should account for at least 4 worker lead by now. I mean, it's almost 10 minutes into the game. But you see here, I'm just going pretty heavy. There I have a Banshee coming out too. Raven Banshee is really quite good as far as just like a damage all to counter Colossus and stuff like that when they appear late game. But here is just a faux drop. I'm using it to just sort of make him move his units around, possibly get some cannons as defense. That would be something a little bit too much to ask, but I'm not going to drop this. I'm just going to scout with it and have him warp in a couple extra units. Maybe he didn't want that Stalker, maybe he didn't have the gas to get that Stalker out, but he had to warp it in because I was in and around his base, especially if he wanted to move out. That would cause him to move some units back into his base. It's just a good thing to do now and then to keep your opponent off your toes. On your toes, sorry, because especially when you're fighting against Zerg too, you want to use it to get them to create actual attacking units instead of defense. So here I'm going to go transition into Marauders. I'm getting Stim. Money's a little bit high right now. I could use it to throw down a couple more barracks. It's a really gas-intensive build. I really want to get that expansion down as fast as possible to try and get the 2 geysers as well. If this went well, if this attack went well, I probably would have gone ahead and gotten a 3rd as well, because I had the workers for it, and I had the production too. I mean, the mules, the constant mules, especially with the cloak for the Banshees, as you always want to get cloak for your Banshees, because if Protoss ever goes late game High Templar, then you will be fucked out the a-hole when you just feed back and die. So here is a Warp Prism, and this is what I didn't see at all. I had absolutely no idea. I mean, I didn't know that you could support. I guess it's because he's not going for the extra gateway route. Usually you would see like 5 gates, the Twilight Council. There is Blink being researched late, but and the Robo. But as a Templar Archives, and you sacrifice some gateways for that. What is this? That's a Forge too, so you can get some ups. But here's the engagement, and I'm going to go ahead and go to my point of view for this. So if we let's just pause it quickly. If we look at the unit tab. So army size, I'm getting a little bit ahead of him, and as far as, alright, so he has a 5 worker advantage and I have a 4 army advantage, so that's about 9 9 attacking units greater. Reason for that, obviously, is because I was one basing for a longer period of time than he was. 12 minutes in, Terran can one base for a little bit longer than Protoss, obviously a lot longer than Zerg, but Protoss and Terran relatively equal on when your expansion timing should be. Obviously, gas is pretty much the big dictator as far as that goes. And him, I'm pretty sure he's just about as gas starved as me at this point because of all the tech path he's gone into. So 6 tanks. We look at the actual units. 6 tanks is pretty heavy. 7 tanks, obviously 1 at my base, but 6 here. It's a pretty hefty amount of sheer DPS. It doesn't matter really against what unit type you're going in. But the tanks will definitely own the Stalkers completely, and the Immortals, if you can get the shields down, obviously later game you want to incorporate Ghosts. If I were to try to get Ghosts off of this, it's not really going to happen, because I couldn't support that on two base with the amount of tanks that I have, and especially the Ravens and Banshees to come. This is a trick I like to use in TvT. Go up here, siege, rape. I mean, you have to get them to pull off their natural if they're Terran. If they're Protoss, I've never gone Protoss. I've never gone mech against Protoss on this map before, but it seemed to work out pretty well. So here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and play it again, and we'll see what there is to see. So here, just boxing it all and attacking. I don't want to move my infantry up too much, or else I'll get sniped. But these 2 defense drones, I mean, look at it. Look at how much damage he's doing, and look at the army size now. I mean, I lost 9, or I lost 4. I lost 4 supply, and he lost damn near 20. And I'm obviously rebuilding that stuff at my base, trying to keep my money low. My minerals are getting high, but I don't have enough barracks to support Marine Span yet. I'm just gonna ferry these up, elevator up here, and I did see the Zealots coming around, so I obviously want to pull some units out here. If I had enough energy, I would have dropped a turret here as well, because you'll see later the turrets are really effective against Zealots. But this is pretty much, I'm gonna switch it to all now, because I wanted to see, oh no, Muffin, I wanted to see this. I didn't realize this until it was too late, but that was a really good move. That wasn't a good equalizer on his part, but this, I think this really killed him, because he didn't have to warp in those extra units. He did morph in an Archon. He could have possibly morphed in another one, but I mean, I have this waiting to defend against possible counterattacks. Meanwhile, up here, I'm just moving the units in after I attack move there. I'm microing this a tiny bit, but really not as much as I probably should have. I am getting a Viking out now, I think. If you look in production, yeah. And here come my tanks up. I unsiege, they do more DPS. It's just the splash damage that you take into account when they're sieged, which is why they're quite tasty. And his micro is slipping a bit here, but I mean, he doesn't have anything to... He only has 3 warp gates. He's trying to build a bunch of different production structures now that it's gotten too late. But it is indeed too late, and I think this is GG, and he doesn't call it. But alas, so that's just a game of me going mech against a Protoss on a map with really close spawns. Obviously he didn't 4-gate me. If he did, I think the 2 bunkers could have held it, especially with that siege coming out relatively soon before the push timing. The 5-gate did hit me pretty early, obviously, because he didn't have to wait for warp, and the reinforcements from the pylon just completely destroyed me that one game. But this, I think, was a pretty competent build, and obviously this is pretty much enough to defend. You would have pulled these here, spread them out around your natural. Hope he doesn't warp Prism into your main again, but really, warping units at that point is pretty much expected. Like, if my army got demolished here, the Mortals got a couple shots off, but I mean, look at the energy that these still had. Obviously he didn't go as Stalker heavy as I had planned. I think I got a 7-second Raven out toward the end. But that's pretty much that. And if you liked it, then just click the like button. That would help me out a lot. I'm going to cast another one right after this. It was a Zerg game I played on Justin's account today, TVZ, and I went bio. It was a bio build that I like to do, and it seemed like a pretty good one. So I'll put that up too, and I have a couple other fun ones from 2v2s and customs and stuff like that that I'll upload as well. So if you like this, click the like button, and leave a comment. My character code is Thorship. And well, my name is Thorship, character code 999, pretty easy to remember. If you play the game, feel free to add me. I don't bite. Peace, see ya.